and welcome to another edition of Disorder in the Court. I'm Ashley Banfield. You know, every day across this country, justice is handed down in the normally reserved and austere confines of our nation's courthouses. But every so often, the high stakes and high drama of a trial cause people to snap, turning a public forum into a public spectacle. Tonight, we're going to look at 20 more of these outrageous moments and the stories behind them. So let's get started.
It's May 1st, 1998. In a Springfield, Massachusetts courtroom, accused rapist and murderer Alfred Gaynor patiently awaits a routine pretrial hearing. It's an oddly calm moment in an otherwise violent case. Between 1997 and 98, a killer known as the Springfield Strangler spread panic and fear across eastern Massachusetts. Eventually, DNA gathered at multiple crime scenes spawned one of the state's largest manhunts ever. And on April 9th, 1998, that manhunt led to the arrest of Alfred Gaynor.
Alfred Gaynor?
Gaynor pled not guilty at his arraignment. And on May 1st, the courtroom's calm was shattered.
Agreement.
One of the victim's son, he jumps over and just tosses him around like he was a rag doll. Then the chair comes out.
I mean, crushing that chair down, you could feel the pain through the screen. But then when the guy gets up, he looks like he's okay.
This is a guy who was angry and wasn't going to be stopped. And you know what? He's a big guy. And I think some of the courtroom deputies weren't so quick to want to stop this guy. Because who's he beating up anyway? Guy killed somebody's mother. Give him a few minutes.
They're not expecting that kind of violence, and unless you are tipped off to worry about a particular defendant, you might not be so prepared.
I've been practicing criminal defense law for 20 years. In Massachusetts, I haven't ever had an experience like this.
Court officers finally get the situation under control. And in May of 2000, Alfred Gaynor was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. In December of 2006, brothers Justin and Josh Mulder faced charges of aggravated cruelty to animals after allegedly torturing a puppy at this Atlanta community center. The brothers sat quietly, unaware that their fate was about to be sealed. Meet State's Exhibit number 109, Rita.
When you have an adorable little puppy as a star witness against you, you're screwed.
And if I were to leave this on and on and on, she's going to struggle and struggle and struggle.
Everybody's going to go for the puppy, and should in this case.
It was a brilliant move because when you have a jury of your community and you want to elicit sympathy, that's a way to do it.
What she's doing is she's pulling back and grabbing.
No jury in the world is going to acquit 2 boys who maimed or hurt a little puppy. But you can see the look on their face like, oh no, I'm screwed.
But just 5 days before Christmas, a hung jury forces Judge Thelma Moore to declare a mistrial. While they await their retrial, the Mulder brothers remain behind bars. In the meantime, Rita has been adopted. In December 2006, Henry Dreverman is facing charges of burglary, arson, and murder in a Florida courtroom. The case began in 2004 when the Hope Lutheran Church was burned to the ground and the wreckage defiled with satanic symbols and inverted crosses. The chilling crime shocked the quiet church-going community of Port St. Lucie, Florida. During Dreverman's trial, cops recalled becoming suspicious after noticing Dreverman lurking near the crime scene and how a search of his home turned up evidence linking him to the arson. But when the prosecutor's timeline gets to Dreverman's interrogation, tensions rise in the courtroom.
You have to remember one thing. When a person is interrogated by the police, it's not for 5 minutes, it's for 5 hours. And they wear you down. They wear you down until you confess.
Prosecutors play the security camera videotape of Dreverman's interrogation in court. On the tape, he finally confesses. But just as he's about to sign his statement, he suddenly and explosively attacks Lieutenant Tom Reuter.
He picked up the pen that the detective had, turned it around quickly in his arm, and charged at the detective and stabbed the detective in the chest.
He was so worn down emotionally and physically that, and then he probably realized, you know, I just made a confession for doing this, that the only way he could strike out was to try to hurt the cop, the detective that was interviewing him. And the only weapon available was a pen.
Dreverman's attorneys call witnesses in support of his insanity plea.
He lumped police officers as basically being on God's side, and that they were there to thwart his efforts.
But prosecutors play the tape as evidence of a sound mind and of a premeditated attack. And on December 13th, Dreverman is found guilty of multiple counts of burglary and arson and the attempted murder of a police officer. Coming up, outraged family members fight back. Plus, rough justice for an accused cop killer in a Kansas courtroom. And later, a real-life Hannibal Lecter shocks the gallery at his arraignment, while mayhem erupts in Washington state when this edition of Disorder in the Court continues.
The moments when victims' families confront the alleged defendants in court are often emotional, often cathartic, and almost always very dramatic. But as you'll see in the moment at number 17, these confrontations can sometimes get violent.
On November 16, 2006, 24-year-old Jason Howard was in an Ohio courtroom facing charges that he'd murdered his ex-girlfriend and her 2 children, when suddenly his victim's brother bursts from the hallway.
This brawl starts, and look at the size of the perpetrator. That little guard is like hanging off of him, trying to subdue, you know, the Michelin Man is what it looks like.
Bailiffs finally managed to restrain the brother. But then the victim's cousin charges Howard, and all hell breaks loose.
The one guy goes after the defendant, and then another guy goes after the defendant.
Now, that was a fight. That was a legitimate fight. That was amazing. And you just, sheer pandemonium.
I understand these families. I understand it. When he has killed a family member.
Most of the outbursts we see, it's 1 or 2 individuals. It's the defendant or maybe 1 or 2 family members. Every now and then you get one of these situations where people pile on, almost like on a football field.
Order is eventually restored in the Ohio courtroom, and the defendant's attackers are arrested and charged with assault. Meanwhile, Jason Howard's behind bars, awaiting his next date in court.